Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on episode 5 of My Hero Academia, Operation New Improv Moves. So I'm guessing we're going to see how some of our current members have improved on their skills from the last time we've seen them. And it looks like our team ups are going to be Tokoyami, Invisible Girl, Momo, and oh gosh, who was the fourth one? Oh no, I'll have to think about who the fourth one is. I've had a momentary relapse in memory, but at least those three. Maybe it's Ayama. I think it's Ayama. Yeah, because Ayama and Invisible Girl are a good matchup because they use like light based attacks. So it's going to be them versus Class 1B. And in the last episode, Shinso helped out Class 1A, and they ended up winning against Class 1B, which makes me wonder if Class 1B is then going to win against Deku's group to kind of make it even, that Shinso's group wins both matches, or maybe Class 1B with Monoma and them will lose and Deku's group will win. But they're saving that last group. That's group 5. They're saving that for last, obviously, because it's Deku's group. They've got to be the one to finish out this whole thing. So we'll get to that eventually. But today I'm really excited because I really like Momo's character a lot. Momo has been one of my favorite Class 1A members since the first time we met her. I love her in terms of her ability to be a strategist, to be a leader. I love her relationship with Todoroki, and how they in season 2 kind of developed their friendship that way. And then I also just like her ability, the idea that she has to eat food and then creates things. Like, that's really cool. And I love Tokoyami. He is like so underrated. I wore black today and did the whole ACDC parody because I wanted to celebrate Tokoyami because he is one of my favorites. Dark Shadow, oh my gosh, I love all of what Horikoshi has done in the manga with Dark Shadow, like making him look cutesy at times and then making him look scary at times, like in season 3. Like, he's just a really, really cool character, and he does not get enough screen time. And in the preview, we saw Hawks with him, and we know that Tokoyami did his internship with Hawks, and so I'm really curious to see what we get in terms of that with his character. I'm really excited about it. So this matchup should be very, very interesting. I'm really curious how it's going to go down. But yeah, guys, I'm excited. We're going to see how this matchup goes. I've read the manga, but I honestly have not reread this part in a long time, and so after this reaction's over, I'm going to go back and reread the chapters that this episode is based off of. So I don't honestly remember a lot of what these characters in this situation can do. I remember a little bit, but not a lot. So it'll be fun to go back and see these powers explained again because I've forgotten some of it. But in any case, I'm going to watch the reaction. Gonna stop the reaction, go and read the manga, and then come back and we'll do a non-spoiler discussion and then a spoiler corner to talk about some manga spoilers once we're done with that. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I'm excited for this reaction, but we are going to start episode 5 of season 5 of My Hero Academia here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, you guys. I love it. Oh, you guys. This was a really, really good episode. As a Tokoyami fan, I feel like we got a lovely dose of him in this episode. And Dark Vantadark, I think that's his name for Class 1B. He's a very, very good opponent for Tokoyami, and I really like how kind of like they're like, when him and Tokoyami met, they were both like, we are comrade in arms, but we're actually rivals. It's like, oh, I love it. But there's so much to talk about with this episode for Tokoyami's character, specifically with his internship, and with I like that we got the parallel of frustration with both Shinso and Tokoyami for different reasons, but I like that we got that debriefing that Aizawa gave them at the beginning. And you could tell, like, of course, I forgot the Kaminari, whenever he discharges all that electricity, he gets kind of dumb afterwards. So he was just like, everything went great. And Aizawa was like, no, it did not. So I like that there's a learning curve that all 4 of them and Shinso can find things that they can improve upon. And Aizawa was like, you need to focus on that in your training. And Koda's is pretty simple. It's just like, you need to be more detailed in your instructions so that things get done with more accuracy. And with Kirishima is a close combat person. He is not good for faraway battles. He's like needs to be up front, up close and personal to be useful, and he got taken out quite easily because of that. And then Suyu, he's like, you need to focus on, what can you do in the moment? Don't worry about your mistakes. Just what can you do to help cover them in that moment? And then Kaminari, obviously, like, don't wait on your friends to be hurt before you decide to get serious. And then Shinso, he didn't have much to tell Shinso. He's just like, your frustration is just from inexperience. And the fact that it took Aizawa 6 years to master that binding cloth, and he's like, look, you're just now getting into this. You're not going to be a master of it. You've just got to work with it. And Shinso sitting there like a cat, like playing like with yarn, like with the binding cloth. That was so cute. But you could see the frustration on Shinso's face where he was like, he knew that he's inexperienced. You could tell that he wants to work past it and he's motivated, but he's so frustrated by it. And the animation on Shinso was really good in expressing that. But also, I forgot that Suyu and Kirishima were two that were in the overhaul battle. And they make a really good point to say that, yeah, Kaminari and Koda, they had frustrations and they had things to learn, but you could tell that this was hitting Suyu and Kirishima so much harder because they've actually been out in the real world and they've seen just how serious these fights can actually be with actual villains. And so even though Midnight and All Might was calling this a dress rehearsal, it's kind of morbid that he calls it a dress rehearsal, because I'm like, the actual theatrics are them versus real villains, and it's much more dire, and the stakes are so much higher in those moments. So it's a little scary when you put it that way. And Kirishima and Sue know exactly what's at stake in the real world, so you can tell that they're really taking to heart how this battle went. And that's good in a way that they are knowledgeable of what can actually happen, but it's kind of sad too because these are kids and some of them have already seen just what stakes are out there. So I think that moving into the other battles, none of the ones in our current battle were in the overhaul situation, so we won't have that. But I feel when we go back to Deku's group with Ochaku and Deku, then it's going to hit harder too because they know as well what stakes are out there. So that's interesting that they're kind of foreshadowing that for us and prefacing that. But that's really interesting. Vlad, I like that he's the commentator still, and how his debriefing was much opposite of Aizawa. He's like, you know what you did wrong, fix it. And they're like, it's not detailed at all. Monoma, I loved Monoma in this episode. He continues to be the Bakugo equivalent for Class 1B. Like, Monoma is so extra and so over the top and extravagant. And then Bakugo, oh god, Bakugo's group, that's going to be a nightmare because Bakugo's just like, just let me fix it. And they're all like, everybody else is strategizing, and Bakugo, what are we doing? So I'm curious to see how that's going to go down. I honestly don't remember how that match went in the manga. It's been a long time since I've read the manga chapters, so I don't remember how that matchup went. So it's going to be fun to rewatch that and see if I can remember anything. But that's going to be exciting. But this matchup, oh my gosh, definitely going to be a lot more strategic with Momo and Kendo as the two leads. And I like that Tetsu and Shoto are the ones talking up Momo and Kendo. There's a lot of people in the shipping community that ship Tetsu and Kendo, and a lot of people that ship Momo and Shoto. And if that's the case, the significant others of Kendo and Momo could not be more different. Like, Tetsu is kind of like a Kirishima Kaminari equivalent in terms of energy and being like manly and hyped up. And Shoto's so quiet and demure that it's kind of the total opposite, but I like it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. In the preview, we saw them commentating, so it's going to be interesting to see how they differ in terms of hyping up both Momo and Kendo, because it seems like that's going to be the two main leads in this fight, what it's going to come down to. But this was all Tokoyami's episode. It was all Tokoyami's episode, and it didn't hit me until this episode just how frustrated Tokoyami was with his internship, because we did see in the flashback when they all came back from their internships way back in season 3, they were like, oh, how was your internship? And Tokoyami's like, wasn't anything special. And at the time, we really didn't know Hawks at all, so we didn't know to expect. But then after meeting Hawks in season 4, it's like, man, Hawks is a really like over the top, energetic, optimistic extrovert. So I was like, how did Tokoyami not learn anything? But it makes so much sense. Hawks is too fast for his own good. He's just trying to get things done so that heroes don't have to work. So, of course, Hawks's OP quirk is going to let him, like, solve these problems instantly. And then, of course, because he's moving so fast, he leaves the paperwork for his sidekicks. He's like, hey, can you guys just take care and clean up this aftermath for me? I got to move on to the next thing. And poor Tokoyami, it's so easy to see his frustration because he's like, I want to learn. I want to become a stronger hero. And with Hawks, he's not exactly a good teacher. Hawks is not an educator. Hawks is not good for that. And it's funny that Tokoyami's like, you've never taken on interns before. Why me? Why now? And I can easily see why Tokoyami would be instantly insulted that Hawks at first was like, oh, because we're birds of a feather. We both got bird quirks. And Tokoyami's like, is that a joke? And you could tell he was not thinking it was funny at all. He's like, did you just pick me because I look like a bird and because you have wings? Really? That's why you did this? And Hawk's like, no. He's like, that's really only 20%. Like, that 20% is the joke because he's a troll. And his VA voices Kuro and Gojo, so it's in perfect troll fashion. And he's like, 50% is that I want info on the League of Villains. And now that we know what we know about Hawks, we know that Hawks is trying to infiltrate the League of Villains. So, of course, he'd want intel. And Tokoyami is very convenient. Tokoyami is a convenient and inconspicuous way to find that out. Because if he had recruited Deku or Shoto or Bakugo, then that would be suspicious to Dabi, because it'd be like, you specifically requested these interns who happened to be at the incident where all this went down. So funny that you specifically asked for these heroes in training. But Tokoyami was present when Bakugo was kidnapped, but he's not one of the most conspicuous people that the League would know about. So it's a very convenient way for him to find information without seeming suspicious to Dabi. And he can use the bird joke and it would be kind of legit, right? So I like that. I like that angle that we, the audience, know that Hawks is trying to get intel, but the rest of the characters don't know. That's a very clever way of doing that. And then I like that in the second flashback, we get the Hawks is like, and the 30% that was remaining is because I think you have potential and you're wasting it. And he's like, you know what you're good at. You need to expand on what you're good at. And I love that moment where they're up on the tower. First of all, him flying with Tokoyami. Tokoyami's like, we're one with the wind. It's like, oh, because Tokoyami's so serious. And I love that he has Sosuke from Freeze voice actor, so his voice can make those dramatic statements, and it's kind of endearing and charming and adorable. And he's like, we're one with the wind, Hawks. And it's like, oh, it's so cute. But yeah, I love that moment. And then when they're up on the tower, Hawks has this kind of genuine, he's like, and I like that Hawks says, I'm not interested in training the future generation. I find that interesting. I find that he says that very interesting. He's not here to be a teacher. That's not his style. And I'm glad he admits that, because a lot of times we think of these heroes like, oh, these heroes are all going to be great teachers for these interns, these kids. No, that's not the case. And Hawks is like, I'm moving so fast. I'm not meant to be a teacher. That's fine. But you're wasting your potential. And I do think we are birds of a feather. And if you've got the means to fly, why shouldn't you? And I love that. I love that animation of the wind blowing through his face and his feathers. And he's like, you can do the same thing I can do. So why shouldn't you? And you can tell in that moment, Tokoyami went from someone who was frustrated with Hawks because he thought Hawks just took him on as a joke, to someone that actually respects Hawks and thinks that he is a good mentor. And it's like, it's kind of like Best Jeanist took on Bakugo, and now Hawks took on Tokoyami. It's like, oh, it's so sweet. I love it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, so we got that. And then the idea of the dark fallen angel. I love that for a moment, him and the Class 1B, the Vanta Dark, they both kind of fanboyed for a minute. They were like, oh, what a cool name. And so it was really, really good. But yeah, this was a really, really good episode for showing off what Tokoyami's learned. and showing off. I felt bad for Aoyama. He just got jerked around those pipes. Bless his heart. So Aoyama got to show off his naval buffet is by far the weirdest name for a technique. I can't say it with a straight face. I'm like, how these voice actors said it out loud. Naval buffet. I can't. But I like that Aoyama got to show off his moves. Tokoyami's got to show off his moves. We haven't got to see Invisible Girl. We haven't got to see her techniques if they've improved yet, or Momo's. So I'm curious if next episode we get that. But man, I forgot about Mushroom Girl and her ability to just make mushrooms. And it seems like such a simple technique, but I have a feeling, I mean, it made Invisible Girl conspicuous. Like you could see her. So I'm curious to know what we're going to do with that. But this was a really, really good episode. I really enjoyed it. I do have spoilers that I want to talk about, and so we are going to have spoiler corner for that. But you guys, so far these Class 1A versus Class 1B battles have been a lot of fun, and I feel like next episode we're going to round out this second battle. So if we're doing 2 episodes per battle, that's pretty good timing, right? So yeah, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this reaction. If you want to stick around for spoilers, please do. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe and take care. And I'll be back next week with more My Hero Academia. So, spoilers. I don't have any manga panel spoilers to show because, again, pacing. 2 chapters. Chapters 198 and 199. Who knew? I'm so impressed with the pace. But looking back and knowing what I know from the manga now, there is some foreshadowing in this episode that is really, really cool. That I like a lot. And I almost gave away a spoiler at the end of this, first part of the discussion, and I had to hold myself back. But, yeah. So if we're doing 2 episodes per fight, we're on episode 5, so episode 6 will round off the second battle. And if we do episode 7 and 8 for the third battle, 9 and 10 for the fourth battle, then 11 and 12, right when the cour ends, we're going to be getting into Deku and Black Whip, which is really exciting. Really exciting. So I was wondering pacing-wise how they were going to do that, but this first cour with Deku and Shinso meeting up, it's going to end right around episode 13, I think. Episode 13 and 14, which will get us into My Villain Academia after that. So that's pretty exciting. I really like the pacing of this season. And I forgot, oh my god, the panel of Hawks up on top of the tower with Tokoyami, and his feathers are like halfway covering his face, because Hawks is often shown with the metaphor of his face being partially covered, kind of symbolizing that you can't fully know what he's thinking in the moment, which is a really clever thing that Horikoshi does with Hawks' character. But that animated was beautiful. I still love the manga panels of Tokoyami being like, we're ones with the wind, Hawk, we're flying. And it's like, oh, you've never flown before? It's like, ah. And if you've read ahead in the manga and you know what's coming, this episode is so important, because the whole phrase the Hawk said of, oh, I'm not here to teach the next generation. It's like, Hawks, you don't realize it yet, but teaching the next generation saves your life. Literally saves your life. Because I'm just noticing now the parallels between Hawks and Endeavor, because Endeavor seemed like he didn't care about the next generation at all until the licensing exam, until he talked with All Might. And All Might's like, you have to figure out what you're going to become a symbol of. Like, I was a symbol of strength. What are you going to become a symbol of? And Endeavor kind of becomes a symbol of hope in the weirdest way possible. Knowing Endeavor's character, it's weird that he's a symbol of hope. It's like, oh, weird. But Endeavor decides in that moment with All Might that he wants to inspire and keep the future safe. Like, that's what he decides that he wants to do in that moment. So, funny that, because then when him and Hawks are walking around in the next couple of episodes, and that's when he interacts with the kid that looks like Natsu from Fairy Tail, and kind of inspires him in a weird way, and then that kid goes on to do the don't you see, we can't give up on Endeavor, and ends up inspiring Endeavor. So it's kind of like a full circle thing. And the same thing is happening with Hawks. Hawks doesn't think he wants to inspire the next generation, but he inadvertently inspires Tokoyami, and Tokoyami ends up becoming like a Hawks fan. He's like, oh, I do really appreciate you, Hawks, and you are like a mentor to me. Fast forward 100 chapters later when we eventually get to it, and Hawks and Tokoyami kind of have the same weakness. Hawks is weak to fire, and Tokoyami is weak to light. And Hawks ends up fighting Dabi, which is like the worst matchup because Dabi can burn his feathers. And Dabi facing Hawks, Dabi ends up severely wounding Hawks, and Tokoyami's the one to save him using Dark Shadow. And it's like, just what this episode foreshadows for those of us that have read the manga, seeing it animated, I was like, oh, when we come back to this like 2 seasons from now, it's going to be like, it's going to hit so hard. It's going to be like, oh, Hawks, you didn't think that you were inspiring anybody, but Tokoyami ends up saving you because of what you do in this episode. And it's like, It just makes me appreciate Horikoshi's foreshadowing that much more, because I'm like, oh, Horikoshi, you knew exactly what you were doing in this. Like, it's like Horikoshi was setting up, like, season 3 and season 2, he was, like, setting things up there that comes back in season 5 that's going to set up and come back. Like Horikoshi does a really good job in this series of foreshadowing things to come. And you don't quite realize it in the moment. And then when you see it happen later on, you're like, oh, he was planning this all along. It's like Aizen from Bleach. It's all part of the plan. But yeah, they did add a little bit in the manga. It's just a panel of Ayama being ripped away. And in the anime, they extended it, and it was hilarious. And I really, really liked it. But yeah, Shinso... Anything else with the manga Shinso, I really can't wait to see little flashbacks of Shinso and Aizawa practicing with the binding cloth, because that's going to be coming later, like their little practicing. I really hope down the road we get Aizawa's backstory, because the more I see Shinso on screen, the more I'm like, man, Aizawa has really taken Shinso in as like a protege, because Shinso is very much like Aizawa. And I really hope eventually down the road, like in season 6, we get the Aizawa backstory from Vigilantes, because it's so sad and beautiful, but it's so good. And I'm also, if you've read the manga, major spoilers, but I'm soaking in every moment with Midnight that I can. And if you know, you know. But seeing her on screen, I'm like, I need to soak this in, because it's hard. It's hard, you know. But yeah, so next episode, we're going to finish up, I'm sure, this second battle. I honestly don't remember how it ends. I think Momo's team wins, but I honestly don't remember. I'm not rereading the manga. I'm keeping up currently with where the manga's at, so the current stuff I'm familiarized with. But honestly, up until the match with Deku versus Shinso, I don't remember a lot of the manga. I think Ida's team loses, and I can't remember why. And Bakugo's team, I can't remember if they win or lose. But I know that it's Bakugo. Oh, God. And just watching him be like, I could do it all myself. I'm like, oh, buddy, haven't you learned? And I think we do get to see that he has learned, but I don't quite remember it. But I don't remember how this episode goes down. I forgot about the mushroom girl. I really like her power to just make mushrooms. It's such a weird quirk, but it's actually surprisingly useful. So I think that's interesting. But guys, just the Tokoyami and Hawks moments. I love Hawks a lot, and I love Tokoyami, so this was a good episode to have them. And it has me excited for down the road when we have Dabi versus Hawks and Tokoyami coming in. It just has me so excited for that. Like, y'all don't even know, there's moments coming up from like chapter 250 on that I'm so dead ready for. Oh, you guys. It's going to be insane. It just gets better, guys. My Hero Academia just gets better. And the anime onlys, it's like Haikyuu. Haikyuu and My Hero Academia. It's like they just get better, and I cannot wait for those moments to happen. But we are going to get some of it in season 5, and I'm really excited. So we shall see. Someone commented on Patreon about being worried with My Villain Academia, and I agree. My Villain Academia and Shigaraki's backstory is so good, and I love it so much. I've heard it. Someone on Patreon said it wasn't as popular in Japan, and I was like, oh no. But I want them to still do good with it, because it's such a good good story, and I think that they will because All for One is involved in it, and so I think that they and the animation team here really likes playing up All for One, so I think that they are going to make it good. But you guys, savor this happy OP while you can, because I'm pretty sure that I really hope that for the My Villain Academia, I really hope that they make an all villain OP and an all villain ED, and maybe throw Deku in there. Like, that would be really cool. But we shall see. In any case, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. Thank you so much for watching and joining the spoiler discussion. If you do have spoilers down below, please tag them so that we don't, spoil anything for those that are just anime only. But in any case, I am excited, and I will talk to you all next week with more My Hero Academia. Stay safe and have a great week, guys. Bye.